Good evening. Welcome to the March 7th session of the Bellingham City Council. Bellingham City Council meets all requirements of the State of Washington Open Meetings Act. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
April Barker.
Here.
Dan Hamill.
Here.
Jean Knutson. Michael Lillequist.
Here.
Roxanne Murphy.
Here.
Pinky Vargas.
Here.
Terry Borneman.
Here.
Thank you, Elizabeth. We are going to move on to our 15-minute public comment period. I have one name in front of me, but if there's anyone else out there that would like to speak at public comment, please feel free. Our first name is Mary Kay Robinson. Come on down and join us, Mary Kay. Thank you.
I thought I was in the wrong place when I first came. I was here. Did I get their time right? My name is Mary Kay Robinson. I'm a realtor at Windermere, and I'm also the president of the Whatcom County Association of Realtors. I wanted to bring up an issue regarding the numbers that staff are using to calculate the units for land capacity in the city, which are used to justify the current boundaries and deny any expansion of the UGA. And there's 4 areas specifically that I wanted to point to. Number 1, staff is using a 15% market factor and a 0% safety factor, meaning that 85% of all lands will be sold. In the last cycle of planning, a 15% market factor was used, and roughly a 12% safety or fudge factor, as it's called, was used. To say that we don't need any safety or fudge factor seems a bit optimistic. So is that realistic? The methodology used for the land capacity analysis is the same for the city lands and rural lands. At this point, I'm not going to address the wisdom of a one-size-fits-all policy or formula to estimate land capacity. The methodology requires that each individual jurisdiction provide to the county their specific stream buffer requirements based on that jurisdiction's particular shoreline management plan. Otherwise, the county applies a default buffer of 25 feet. With the exception of lands within approved urban villages, the waterfront, and I believe Old Town, the city did not supplement the county's assigned default buffers. That means the city did not provide its own buffers to the county according to its own Shoreline Management Act, which requires buffers of 50 to 250 feet. So while the city is using the same methodology, it's not implementing it properly when taking into account its own shoreline management policies and the land capacity analysis. Why? Number 3, the proposed comp plans assumes a vacancy rate of 4 to 7.3% in 2036. We're currently at a vacancy rate in the city of Bellingham of somewhere around 1%. Information from the staff states that the assumptions are used to accommodate the net new population and does not build in a vacancy inflator factor to raise the current housing stock vacancy rate and accommodate new residents. Why not? Staff submitted a land capacity analysis showing a total of 580 units, housing units in multifamily zones, single family, that would be displaced by future multifamily development. The model backs these existing homes out appropriately, most of which are very affordable in the city, and then determines future capacity with multifamily so they're not double counted. Really, we're going to tear down 580 of our most affordable homes to get to the right number? And just from a market factor standpoint, median home prices in Bellingham are up to $325,000 at the end of 2015 and are still rising. Prices are up 21% in the last 4 years, and inventory is down. And I printed off some MLS graphs that you can have. Pass that around. This scenario does not work in terms of supplying affordable housing for all income levels, not just the lucky few who get subsidized housing. I just have a all these factors, in addition to the confusion and then the recalculation of the land capacity analysis and the Dewey Valley annexation, point to a very aggressive mathematical approach to make the numbers work without resorting to increasing the UGA. I don't think playing a shell game with housing unit numbers is a great way to plan for 20 years. Now, I realize the expansions of the UGA costs money. However, the city's own financial consultant really recently stated that one of the best ways to increase revenues in development and construction with its impact fees, permit fees, et cetera, has the city asked the developers if they would work with the city to create a win-win scenario. Have we ever had those discussions? I think we can work together to create a thriving, vibrant, healthy, diverse, and affordable community if we work together. I think we can have it all. Thanks.
Thank you, Mary Kay. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak at public comment tonight? Don't fight on your way down here. No? Okay, well then we're going to close public comment period. And we are going to move on to a review of our committee of the whole today. We had 5 items in front of us this afternoon. Our first item is an ordinance approving the advance refunding of the outstanding 2007 limited sales tax obligation bonds. This ordinance authorizes the issuance of limited tax general obligation refunding bonds in the aggregate principal amount of not to exceed $11 million to refund certain outstanding limited sales tax obligation bonds of the Bellingham-Whatcom Public Facilities District. This ordinance delegates authority to the Finance Director for a limited time to approve the interest rates, maturity dates, redemption terms, and principal maturities for the bonds within the parameters set by this ordinance. I know that all sounds a little confusing, so I will just tell you that Brian Henshaw gave us an overview this afternoon, and pretty much what he is explaining is that he's asking for authority to refinance through city interest, which we get a lower interest rate on, and we can save on lower interest rates in the long term, which could estimate a savings of over $600,000 for us in the next few years. And we unanimously approved to do so.
Move it. You have to move it.
Oh, I so move, sorry. Yes,
Second.
that is my job, isn't it? We have a motion in front of us and a second. Discussion, comments, council? All those in favor of approving the ordinance for the advance refunding, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. There was a second part to that as well, in which our next item was to authorize the mayor to enter into the interlocal financing agreement with the Bellingham-Whatcom Public Facilities District. So the city will issue a limited tax general obligation bond and then loan the money to the Bellingham-Whatcom Facilities District to refund their 2007 limited sales tax obligation bond issued to pay for a portion of the Art and Children's Museum and the Mount Baker renovations. This money will be paid back to the city from sales tax revenue authorized by RCW 35.57. And again, Brian explained that to us, and this is just us authorizing so that we can get the lower interest rate through the city interest funds and credit rating. And again, this will save us about $600,000. And I so move.
Second.
We have a motion in front of us to authorize the mayor into the interlocal financing agreement. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Third item for us today was an ordinance establishing the fees for rental inspection. City Council adopted ordinance 2015-03-005 on March 9th, 2015, establishing a rental registration and inspection program. Based upon council direction, the fee schedule identified as Exhibit A is proposed. And I'm just going to review that really quickly, what Exhibit A is. And Exhibit A outlines the per unit cost for the city inspector at $100, the per unit private inspector at $45, and all the other fees are listed on the website if you are interested in taking a look at it. But one that we wanted to just put out there to make sure everyone realizes is that we are going to try and schedule an appointment. You are free to change that appointment, but once you do communicate with the city and confirm that appointment, that there is going to be a $25 missed appointment fee. So we're going to try and work with everyone as closely as we can, but we do want to follow that as closely as possible. So this was the work of our planning department and IT, who did an analysis to keep our costs as low as possible for our inspections and to come up with an appropriate fee. So thank you for that. And the council approved this unanimously this afternoon, and I so move.
Second.
We have a motion in front of us and a second for an ordinance establishing the fees for rental inspection. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. And the second part of that was our fourth item today was a budget amendment to allow the reclassification of an office assistant 1 to office assistant 2 to a planner 1 in the Planning and Community Development Department. So this is a reclassification of the budgeted 0.5 FTE Office Assistant 2 position, which was intended to support the rental registration and inspection program, to a 1.0 FTE Planner 1 position. Is necessary to adequately address enforcement issues associated with illegally established rental units. The request for this reclassification comes after the Planning and Community Development Department has a better understanding of the issues on the completion of the initial rental registration process. This reclassification better aligns with the intent of the program to ensure that all rental units in the city are safe and consistent with adopted codes. A little update on that, just so you know, we have 18,833 units that have registered online. And that a couple notes that Rick explained to us this afternoon, all complaints that are life safety related will go to the top. Any issues that a constituent thinks that a unregistered location is being used will be put in the queue and allocated appropriately. We will also be looking for economies of scale, so if we're in an area, we will try to take as many accounts as we can and include those that came through on the complaints basis if they can fit into that area. Is there anything else anyone wants to add on that particular? Did I cover that? Go ahead, April.
I just wondered if you happen to bring the website. We're just going to put the link. Okay. Okay, thank you.
And that was the link for?
Western Washington had a Housing for Hash Browns where they had Emma, a staff member, present. They taped it, but they also had Clean Energy present, and it was really fascinating, and hopefully it sounds like we're going to link people to it from our rental registration
All right, we
website.
will provide that URL. Okay, so this afternoon, we had a unanimous vote to pass the ordinance, and I so move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second in front of us for the budget amendment to allow the reclassification of office assistant. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. The last item on our committee of the whole this afternoon was the overview of level of service and proposed review processes. Now, I'm probably not going to do the best job being concise on this, so if there's anything that I leave out and anyone wishes to add, I just want to say before I discuss a little bit on this is that this is only the beginning of our discussion. This is going to be very long, deliberated, and thoughtful, and there will be lots of statistics and data involved before we make any changes or make any suggestions, and that we are looking at an adaptive change. And this is going to be a little bit different for us in that we're going to be analyzing things as we go and figuring them out. So Rick Zippler gave us a great presentation today on the overview and some of the things that we are going to review in the level of service. Couple key questions. Are there interim steps we need to take today? Can we reduce costs? Are there programs that we can reduce in scope or eliminated? And what would be the outcome of reductions of level of service? Are there possible efficiencies, consolidations, and/or reprioritizations associated with current service delivery? And what approaches are possible to preserve and enhance valued services? Now, I know when the conversation of level service comes up for people that it's scary because it means that we might be losing programs, we might be losing jobs. Just know that we are trying to be as trying to keep our continued level of service. That is our goal here, is to try and keep the standards that we are accustomed to in the city of Bellingham. But we know that within 2 years, we're going to be in some pretty serious financial issues if we don't make some changes and we don't analyze this right now. So we're going to take a look at what's important. We're going to come up with a roadmap, and the next meetings right now, March 21st, we're going to discuss level of service again. There'll be a background briefing. And then April 11th, we'll have another presentation. And again, in April 16th in our council retreat, we're going to get into more levels. So again, this is just the beginning of our conversation on level of service. This was for information only. Is there anything anyone would care to add to that? Rick, am I doing okay? Are we all right? Okay. And with that, that would be end of Committee of the Whole from this afternoon's report. Next, we have a set of minutes in front of us to approve. Has everyone had a chance to review?
Move approval.
Second.
This is a motion for the approval of February 22nd regular City Council meeting minutes. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Old or new business?
I have something.
Please, Councilmember Barker.
So I brought this up at Old or New Business, but I think it's important enough that I'll bring it up again if you didn't happen to watch the afternoon meetings, which I do highly suggest. I know things seem to move pretty fast at this level, but a reminder that we do have meetings all day, and you can watch those, BTV 10 and YouTube. So I'm Ward 1 representative, and we had employees and neighbors were noticed that Albertsons will be closing on May 7th. They're going to try to, it sounds like, relocate employees to other Safeways, but the doors will be closed on the 7th. And I brought up a comment during level of service that place really does matter. And if we get so focused as a city on these levels of service, we can kind of silo and forget that if we don't make those places matter, we lose interest, we lose businesses, we lose all kinds of things. And that corner has always been an issue. The neighborhoods cried out for help. So many people, and I think it'll be important in this level of service discussion to talk about place matters, and that we really need to have that as a bit of an objective. We will be, I think I'll be working with Rick, and it sounds like staff might be working to try to figure out a plan. We don't know what the decision is. There hasn't been any talk of a new store opening, but I think right now our thoughts are with a lot of employees that have spent more than 32 years with the company and are living in the neighborhood and are going to be displaced with their jobs, but also are most vulnerable, that will not have access to fresh fruits and vegetables. It's going to create a food desert, and we know the intense implications that can have on an area. So I'll be working as much as I can, and hopefully the council will follow, as well as staff, to come up with some solutions to at least make sure that we're helping the most vulnerable in this situation and making a plan. So, thank you.
Thank you, April. And April, you just reminded me, I just want to remind everyone out there that we do go into depth in our afternoon committee meetings, so especially on level of service, if you wanted to see some of the questions or the conversation that come up, please do watch our committee meeting minutes on TV. We know they're really exciting. So just want to remind everyone of that. Councilmember Lillquist.
Yeah, I want to bring up something under new business. Actually, I want Mr. Heinrich to help me out on this. It has to do with state funding for the Municipal Services Research Center. Yeah, it's been funded for over 80 years by the state, and Bellingham and many cities use it. It's a primary source of information for local cities, and unfortunately, it's been zeroed out in the supplemental budget. Now, it may not stay that way. There are people who are trying to bring it back. I thought it would be an ideal time for the city to weigh in support of the MRSC, and so Brian was actually going to look into its current status like today.
Yeah, so Brian Heinrich, Mayor's Office. I had a chance to speak with our lobbyist, Ben Buckholz, this afternoon, and the situation is, as Michael explained, it was zeroed out in the Senate operating budget. It was, however, included in the House and in the governor's proposed budget. So we are down to 3 more days in the session, so they'll continue to negotiate on getting a supplemental budget. And Ben, Michael, I asked him about perhaps the mayor's office and council contacting, at a minimum, our delegation, 40th and 42nd, expressing our support for that funding, and he thought that'd be a great idea. So I'd be happy to draft something and send that in the morning on behalf of the mayor and council, and typically we include Pinky as a signatory to that, but I'd be happy to do that.
Would you like to make a motion,
Yeah,
Michael?
so I would move that the city council join in the mayor in a letter to be sent to our representatives in support of funding for MRSC.
Second.
So we have a motion in front of us to support, send a letter to support MRC. Any discussion, questions?
Yeah. MRSC is a valuable resource for jurisdictions like ours. I was able to work with them on getting some language and some background information on employment, ban the box legislation, national employment legal project. And I had a call in on a Tuesday, and I got an email back with loads of information on Wednesday. I mean, they're just really an asset to the city, so I'm definitely going to be supporting this.
Council members, any other comments? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. And thank you for bringing that up, Michael. They are a very valuable resource for us elected officials. Anyone else? Okay.
So, gosh, I think it was in January, we had a constituent come and discuss some concerns of closed captioning and our businesses in the community. Since then, I've reached out to several businesses, mostly that have a lot of televisions, as well as the Association of Restaurateurs, and I think it's called hoteliers. Those are new words for me. I think at this point in discussing with some staff and those groups of people, it would be a good time to move this just to a work session so we could understand what the issues are a little better before making any decisions about policy or actions that we want to take. So I'm not quite sure. I know I'm making a motion to move closed captioning and discussions about closed captionings in regards to the cities and restaurants and hotels, but I don't know if you guys feel it should go to Public Works since it's an accessibility issue, or if it should go to community and...
What do you think?
Public Works, Public Safety is fine.
Okay. So I move that we bring the topic for, and then I guess also that we would allow Mark to do some research and have a discussion with us on what other communities do, what are some options, and then after that we can decide if we'd like to hold maybe public comment or something to learn more.
So you have a motion in front of us?
I have a motion in front of me.
Okay. Second. Councilmember Hamel.
Yep. So I would make a friendly amendment to that motion that that we look at broader issues of accessibility, not just the closed caption issue that was brought before us in January, but there are other issues of accessibility to city facilities for mobility. I think of parents with kids with disabilities, families with older parents who might have mobility issues. We want folks to be using the commercial street parking garage facility, so having that be completely accessible and providing input and advocacy from other stakeholders would be something that I would be interested in hearing. So I would just slightly broaden your motion to make the discussion around broader accessibility issues in the city of Bellingham.
So what would you want Mark to be bringing forward?
I would want, I'm not sure necessarily what I'd want Mark to be bringing forward, but I would want to frame the discussion broader than the narrow, which is very important. I think the closed caption discussion is absolutely important, but I think that there are other accessibility issues while we're on the topic that we can be discussing.
I'm okay with that.
Councilmember Lillquist.
Well, just a comment. I always like broader discussions, but I think the suggestion for the closed caption had to do with asking private industries to add to what they do for accessibility, whereas the discussion you're talking about, Dan, I think mostly has to do with making sure our public facilities are accessible, sort of a Band-Aid on ourselves. Am I understanding you correctly? Because it's good to have them together, but they are kind of separate or different.
Well, I think basically what I'm trying to get at is a broader, is a discussion and dialogue around broader accessibility issues, whether they be city facilities or whether they be private business accessibility for buildings, whatever the case may be. We have some condos in downtown Bellingham. I've got a contractor as a child with a disability, and the door to the building isn't one where you can push the button and the door opens. So things like that. So simple improvements that could be an opportunity for us to look at that and to provide input.
I'm going to make a suggestion. I think that April's motion might stand on its own because it is less complicated, and this is a much broader discussion, and this might be something that we could get through a little quicker. So may I suggest, if you feel okay with this, to each have your own motion in regards, one on closed captioning and one on looking at accessibility throughout the city.
That's fine.
Councilmember Borman?
Well, I
did
was
you have
just
that?
going to say with Dan's, it's a great one, but I would really ask that you define the scope and what we're looking at, because it's really too broad for a committee to begin to get your head around, know where we're looking. You've got some ideas that are very specific, I think, that you want to discuss. And if we're going to do it, I would really appreciate that we do define the scope that we're looking at and what we're looking at and to discuss, just to make it a little easier.
Did you want a little bit of
because there's
time
a lot
to
of-
define that?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'd like to actually probably
Okay.
meet with Public Works Director and maybe define that scope a little bit more.
Yeah, I've worked in those areas in the field of blindness and with DD populations and the early ADA things, and there's a lot of broad areas you can go with, and so if we can define some of that, it will make it a lot easier for
Sure,
at least to get a discussion going.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll withdraw the amendment, and then I'll bring it back on the 21st.
Okay.
Good discussion.
So we have a motion in front of us to bring the discussion of closed caption to Public Works, Public Safety Committee, and then Dan will follow up with your own motion at your own time. So is there something you wanted to add to that,
I
April?
think I want to make it very clear that this is discussion, that we've had constituents come forward with a concern, and we really need to understand all of the options related to the discussion. And then again, if we decided so, we could have some public comment and make decisions there. This is simply a discussion, so. thank
Okay.
you.
So again, our motion is to move an exploration and discussion on reviewing closed captioning throughout the city of Bellingham. And this will be brought for a work session to Public Works, Public Safety. Does that seem amiable to everyone? Okay. All those in, sorry? I seconded it. You, okay.
A long time ago.
And we have a second from Councilmember Murphy. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. I have one more item for old or new business. I just wanted to let everybody know that we have our beautiful 2015 council report. This was put together by our assistant Marie Marchand, and she did a wonderful job. And we just wanted to let you know that these are available at our city council office, and it kind of talks about what we did. It's our year-end report for 2015, and Marie has put this together 2 years in a row for us. So thank you for Marie. We can send you a digital copy if you're interested, or you can come and pick one up from the office. Anything else for old or new business? Did I give everyone? Okay. So I'm going to do a little report out on our executive session. We had 2 items in front of us today. Potential litigation. Staff provided information on a matter involving potential litigation. It was information only and no action was taken. We had a potential property acquisition. Staff provided information on a potential acquisition of property by the city. Direction was given and no action was taken. And with that, we're going to move to the mayor's report and to Brian Hyren.
Good evening. A couple appointments for your consideration. The mayor would like to reappoint Sarah Campbell to the Historic Preservation Commission, and we seek your approval.
Move approval.
Second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Great, thank you. Mayor would also like to appoint Mark Buer to the Transportation Commission and seek your approval.
Move approval.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. And finally, for your information, the mayor is reappointing Jeff Cook to the Mayor's Neighborhood Advisory Commission. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Consent agenda.
Move approval.
She beat me.
So
I have to
fast.
give it. She beat me.
Louder.
Second.
Oh, my goodness.
All those in favor? And we have 4 items in front of us on the consent agenda. Please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda is approved 7-0.
Okay.
Yeah, that's okay. Hey, it's okay to second guess me. Yeah. You never know. I'm still learning. So with that, the next meeting of the Bellingham City Council will be March 21st. And thank you for joining us. Till next time, good night. We are adjourned.